Cool, cool. You can speak. Yeah, I wanted to bring on some other people too, and kind of discuss a little bit about kind of how the conference went, kind of the receptivity we've had. I wanted to discuss a little bit about the DAO, wrapping up the Constitution, and then give everybody kind of a development update of where everything is right now. I think the wires got crossed on the timing, so not a lot of people showed up, but we'll just keep going. Okay, so development-wise, it's been about a month since we did an update, hasn't it? So I've been working on finishing the bugs that we've had. I've fixed some, and then some more keep popping up. We've still been working. I've been kind of working with Christo. He's got different requests he's putting in. Kendall right now is running an Android and iOS build. We're getting it pretty close to where we're going to be able to release that final beta. There's just been a few little idiosyncrasies, kind of like, even today, just standard to unsend long long. It's never had an issue before. All of a sudden decided to become an issue today. So that's all getting wrapped up. I think I'm down to just a few bugs, and then I think like 2 bugs left, and then some enhancements, really just the invoices API, which hasn't really been super thoroughly tested. Other than that, I've just been wrapping up all those different items. I've been getting the workshop going more too, so I'm working on the propulsion systems, as I've been talking to you guys about as well. That's been a really important step because, at least in my mind, I think in order for this new protocol to really kind of take off, like we need to have our own decentralized launch capacity. And as far as I've seen, that hasn't really been something that's been very possible before. A lot of times, as I've mentioned before, rockets themselves are considered weapons, and then that creates kind of a place where people can pinch us, right? They can stop it. There's been other people that I've seen that have actually released certain certain satellites that didn't have frequency licenses, and the rocket company was what was taken out. So that's a really, really big factor, because as we're developing disruptive technology, there's really only a handful of space companies in the world that can actually provide launch capacity. So we want to make sure that we, have kind of our own independent, and that also is an aim too to help solve some of the radiation hardening issues with satellites, microsatellites. As I've mentioned before, one of the biggest drains, I guess you could say, on the satellite architecture and any sort of space-based computing is you have radiation that you need to constantly combat, right? The primary one is beta particles, which is just kind of stray electrons floating around, and what happens is it causes your bits to flip. So some of this new technology I'm working on too is also generating different fields that should be able to help, because my design goal really is ultimately I'd like to be able to get it to where we can get as close to consumer grade hardware as possible to be deployed, because I want to lower the cost of entry as low as possible, so that as many different types of people can get involved in the satellites as possible, right? Not making it some big pie in the sky. You have to have 10, 20, 30, 100, $50 million, something where you could build it, for right now it's about $100,000 per satellite, but I'd like to get it ultimately to, a few $1,000s if possible. But that's going to require a lot of different engineering. So I've been kind of getting into the workshop a little bit more, which has been really fun. I've been really enjoying that. And then as far as the development, I've been basically wrapping up all of the different bugs. I've been getting some of the new architectures developed. As you guys remember, I was talking about a surprise. That was kind of a little gift to you guys' community, because there's been a bit of a drive from the community to wanting remote logins. So I've been designing it, and that's why I said it was a surprise at the time, because the design really is the biggest burden to being able to get it. So I've been actually working on some of the implementation of that now as well. So this 5.1 will be released and packed with the remote login feature, which packages really nicely with the mobile wallet. It's really an important feature because it really allows any sort of web application to start adopting login with Nexus options, right? And you don't really need to even have to care about blockchain in order to use Nexus. It's just a really powerful web framework that, it really is supportive of your existing web application. And that's one thing that we really want to do. As I've talked to a lot of different people over the years about, adopting blockchain and this or that, they always run into the similar issue. It was like, oh, I'm going to have to rebuild my whole app, right? And that's just not going to happen. And a lot of the world that, as I've seen, it isn't really taking crypto too seriously. Most of the people I see, they'll be, Oh yeah, yeah, I don't mess with crypto. I mean, even libertarians, like, oh yeah, it's just whatever. I mean, some of us, we do, but there's this I don't know. I mean, there's coins called doggy coin. Okay, like, I mean, we can be criticized for our faults, which we definitely have our own mistakes that we've made. We're slow, our timelines aren't always accurate, but besides that, I mean, we're building real technology and we're building things that really impact people in real ways, right? And that's one of our fundamental focuses. And the NFT things are kind of cool, but it doesn't really do anything for the world, right? Yeah, I have this fancy picture, and now I'm selling this fancy picture to you because you want it, and then someone else wants that fancy picture, and then yada 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 yada. The list goes on. So that's why Phil can maybe come in and talk about this a little bit more about kind of the peer-to-peer commodities markets, right? That's a really big thing that we're focusing on with this, is commodities, right? I think a lot of people are not going to really ever touch crypto until there's something that makes it necessary for them. Right now, the dollar works. Even though the bread keeps doubling in cost every time you go to the grocery store, it still works. And the barrier to entry in cryptocurrency is still too high compared to just the cost and the risk of remaining inside the current financial system. So I think it's really important for us as a community to really be focusing on these things and bringing these ideas together. And this kind of ties back into the DAO, right? I wanted to comment a little bit on that. I know there's some people in the community that have their own beliefs of what things are. And I mean, I've witnessed this going on for about 2 months now. I think 3 or 4 people have just been spinning their own narratives. And I mean, it's kind of funny how history repeats itself because this reminds me of what's happened in the past before. And I think it's just really a common problem of having a centralized communication platform, right? Telegram, centralized communication platform. So what you get is you're always going to get somebody that's the grandstander that wants everybody to listen to them, and they go into the main community area and they start yelling at everybody with a megaphone. And that's kind of what's happening right now. So there's a lot of misunderstanding of some of the DAO protocols and architectures, and some of that is my fault for not having it more documented. But that's where I'm working right now. This week, I've been focusing a lot on finishing and wrapping up the Constitution so that we can have that ratified and essentially go into the ratification process. So I'm starting up essentially, how should I say it? I'll be back in the Telegram. I just want to comment on this so you guys all know, because I know some people kind of were like, I'm freaking out. I don't want you guys to think that I've left the community. I have not left the community. I never will abandon you guys, okay? Like, Nexus to me is it's my child, okay? Like, I love you guys like you're my child. Whether or not you believe it or not, okay? Like, look at the track record, okay? I've been here. I'll continue to be here. I'll continue to build it. I said I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it, okay? Period. I told you I'm working on electrical propulsion systems. Well, look, I changed the weight of an object. Imagine that. Just wait. And the next step, you're going to start seeing, devices that actually lift off the ground. That's the next step. I'm just waiting on my workshop to get finished more, which that's a huge, huge, huge step. I mean, the vision I have of the future, which maybe you guys will like this, is you having a glowing geometric shape. It's whatever shape you want it to be, glowing blue. That's your satellite. And letting it go and seeing it slowly fly up into the sky. And then someone else will see that fly into the sky and they'll be like, hey, I want that. And then they will start releasing one. And then they'll start flying off into the sky all over the world, right? That is my ideal situation. And that's actually, I've made progress significantly towards that end. I'm actually really grateful for the progress that we've made. It's studying certain high voltage effects, which is really, really, really fascinating actually. And this is called the B-Field-Brown effect. It actually T. Townsend Brown actually studied it. A lot of people claim that it is electrofluid mechanics, right, where you're getting this fluid mechanical thrust, right, which for ionization on high voltage, which accounts for about 30% of the thrust. But if you actually put it in oil in a vacuum, it still produces thrust, right? But interesting enough, it correlates to solar activity, right? There's some really interesting effects with electricity and propulsion, and that's really what I'm studying. And so that ultimately, I think, is what's going to be that sets us free. rocket partnerships, SpaceX, whatever. That's all cool and that's dandy. It's more experiential knowledge for me, not like applicable knowledge. I mean, I've learned it, I've understood it, but really, to me, I'm glad I had such a grand tour of the aerospace industry, because to me, the technologies that we use are, you know, they need a lot of work. There's a lot of growth to be had, and there's a lot of repurposing of old technologies that really need improvement. So ideally, if we have our own onboard propulsion system, we're not going to be necessitated to go into, I guess you could say, low Earth orbit satellites. One of the biggest complications of doing a LEO orbiting pattern is that you have to constantly track all these different satellites that are moving, and they're orbiting about every 90 minutes. But if we start developing onboard propulsion systems that will allow this to essentially maintain some sort of geospatial location above the Earth without actually needing to be moving, 10, 15,000 miles an hour like it does in orbit, then you essentially get this benefit of geostationary satellites. You have less satellite tracking issues, and you'll require less satellites to get full ground coverage. So the way it's designed with the antenna system, about 500 kilometers between each satellite, and I'm essentially designing like a decentralized grid, if that makes sense, up in orbit. So you'll essentially have to purchase an orbital position in order to deploy one of these satellites, and we'll have to figure out in some of the discussions how that funding, filters back. I was thinking of it just filtering back into the network fee reserves, or we could have it go into serious technology and resource to fund further research and development. I don't know. I'm just wary of, potential funding jackpots, I guess you could say, because those just become targets, right? We want to remove all the targets off of any possible place. But anyway, I went on a little bit of a tangent. I wanted to address some of the things that's been happening in the community, and why I really ultimately left the Telegram community. It's not that I've left the community, it's that I feel as kind of like as a parent when your child goes and they go off to college, right? You don't go to college with them. You don't sit in every class with them, right? Like, Nexus is growing up. And I think in order for Nexus to really, truly thrive, you guys need to learn to manage it without me, right? I think that's really important. Now, I'll still be here. I'm here to answer questions. I'm here in direct messages. I'm in the developers channel. I'm on Twitter. I'm promoting a lot more. But I'm just not going to necessarily be as involved in the day-to-days inside the Telegram. I will be back once the Constitution is done. I'll join back briefly for a ratification process. Okay, I think that's going to clear up a lot of the confusion. And I'll just note this to anyone that's in there. I mean, we need to come up with some ways to prevent these things from happening, where just 2 or 3 people create so much mess and drama, it causes stress on so many other people, and then they spin narratives, and then it keeps going, and then they think they're right, but they don't know what they don't know, and then they're arguing and they're ignorant. It's just been such a mess. Like, guys, like, you just, like, Robert, Gaia, oh yeah, stop. You're not helping Nexus. You're hurting it. You're hurting yourselves. You're hurting Nexus. Stop the stuff, right? We need to work together as a team. The way we work together is we understand things further rather than project what we think we know on things, okay? Which would necessitate, hey, Colin, I have a question about this. Like, there is this process. I think there was a question of Phil and how Phil got involved in the judicial branch. Well, as every arm self-regulates, every arm votes in the people they want involved in the arm, right? That's just to create synergy so that everyone is essentially mutually accountable to each other, but then they work with the people that they actually want to work with, okay? I like working with Phil. He's a great dude, and so I invited him in to kind of help with judicial duties, because at the time, before Phil, I was having to manage all the ambassador drama, the developer drama, and the community drama, okay? And you guys wonder why it's taken longer for code to get done. Well, the more drama you guys create and the more people I have to answer questions for, then that typing messages to you guys is not typing code, okay? And it also just, it takes, there's a certain type of mental capacity that's required to really perform at your best. And, creating big stinks, it causes a lot of stress on everyone, and it makes things happen a lot slower. So if that's your intent, that you want 5.1 to take longer, Robert, Gaia, then keep doing what you're doing. If you want it to get done faster, then stop, right? We need to be helping each other. If you have issues with the architecture, put effort to understand the architecture, and then submit and suggest alternatives in a formal process, not just like, oh, I think. No, we need to know. Okay, what is a formal process? How does judicial work? How is it bottom up, right? So let me explain what hierarchical means. Okay, a hierarchical system is one where there's layers of the system where the layers below are subservient to the layers above. This is a non-hierarchical system. Okay, it still has layers, right? The reason you have layers is to aggregate communication. You get combinatorial explosion. Try getting 1,000 people in a room, okay, but then you send a message to one person in the room and expect that message to transfer to all those 1,000 people accurately. Okay, tell me how well that's going to work. It's not. It doesn't. Okay, lattice structures completely fall apart, and that's one of the failures of decentralization so far, is that they don't have the proper social structures. They don't scale. They're just clear lattices. Now let's fast forward into the future. There's, million people involved in the community, and there's lots of proposals going out. Let's just say it's just a straight DAO where everybody votes on every proposal. Well, you got 1,000 proposals a day. How are you going to actually effectively vote? You can't, right? That's why you need aggregation and isolation, where you focus your things on the things that you want to really focus on, which is a small subset of the greater whole. And that's essentially how everything really works in nature, is something is split up among multiple participants, because that makes it able to function at a higher level and not have to necessitate the transmit and retransmission of information over and over and over and over and over again, right? So the whole point of the layers is layers of merit and layers of communication aggregation, okay? So that you could have a whole arm that could have 104 people in it, and as each level goes up from the 13 to the 8, all of those 8 people now have a visibility into what all those groups of 13 are doing without having to know what every single individual is doing. And then all those 8 then transfer through the chair, so the chair knows what all those 8 arms are doing, or 8 nodes are doing. And so now one person can aggregate everything from 104 people. And so you're getting a lot more effective communication that way. And, you can't deny the fact that there's some people that are just more capable than others. It's not because we're born more or less different. It's just that we spend different time in our lives developing different skill sets. And that's really important. That diversity is really important. There's some people that just want to, do their tasks and get paid and, go live their life. And there's some people that really want to ascend and become more than what they really are, and to expand beyond what they really are. So I think it's really, really important for us to understand this, that the social system, the base templated structure of it is, it's a meritocracy where you ascend up the stack based on merit. But here's the biggest distinction that I need to make sure that is just drilled in all of your heads, okay? When a new layer is formed, so let's say you've got 5 arms with 5 chairs, and then, they start a group of 8, one of those chairs. What happens is the person or the group above transfers their authority to the group below. Okay, so you become subordinate to your base group if you get elected a chair. Your group is not subordinate to you. And I think that's a really important distinction that we need to make sure is understood, because there's a natural propensity for people to fall back into the client-slave, member-manager type of situation, because that's what they're used to, okay? A chair has no authority. They actually are subject to the authority of their group, okay? And then the group facilitators are subject to the authority of their base group, okay? So you, if you want to ascend up and you want to accept a chair position or a facilitator position or any of that, you are a servant to your group, okay? If you don't want to be a servant, then don't be a chair, okay? But you're a servant. You transfer your authority to them, to the group below. And let's say the group of 8 wants to add 8 nodes of 13, then what each one of those individuals is going to be doing is transferring their authority to now a base group, okay? So that group of 13 now has authority over you and that node position. That's how it works. It's bottom up. It's non-hierarchical, okay? It has layers to aggregate information, okay? That's how things scale. The three-dimensional blockchain, okay, that has layers to create aggregation techniques as well. That's one way that you reach scalability. I'd like to see anyone argue with me and tell me that 1 million people can talk to 1 million people and get the same message across. It does not happen. It does not happen. We all know that, like, when a story passes through even 3 people, it changes, okay? It's a big problem with social systems. And that's what's allowed hierarchies to exist in corporate structures. That's why they exist, because they work and they scale. And that's the unfortunate circumstance about it. And decentralized systems is that they don't scale and they don't work. You either get complete anarchy where everyone's just doing whatever the hell they want, and you end up with Bitcoin, right? Which really has totally lost touch with Bitcoin. And, it's supposed to be decentralized, but yet there's 3 to 5 people that control the code base and 3 to 5 people that control the mining network. So 10 people control the whole network. That's not very decentralized, right? That's why I set out to design this whole embassy model and the social architecture, is because I saw what happened to Bitcoin. As Ernie says, if they can, they will, right? If you have the capability to be corrupted and infiltrated and taken over, it will happen. They will do it at some point or another. There is no oh, hey, we're just small. They're not going to, they will. They did it to Bitcoin, right? They'll do it to us. We've already seen it, attempted to happen multiple times, and that's actually how I designed the social system. So I'm finishing the Constitution, which I've got 7 pages written now. I spent the last couple days really focusing on that because I think that's the most pressing thing right now. Right now as a community, this is a time we need to hold ourselves together, right? Not tear ourselves apart. It's very, very important for us to work together and focus. I've been having a lot of fun on Twitter. The community's been awesome here. We've been getting lots of promotion going. I like that it's kind of more decentralized. It's not like a big pot where one person can message 3,000 people at once. That's kind of how Telegram is. And, I'm eventually, I want Telegram to be phased out because it's just too many difficulties with it. It creates more problems than it really solves. But we'll get to that. So once I finish the Constitution and writing it, I'll temporarily join back into the discussions channel. I'm going to post the Constitution, and I'm going to provide an amendment process, okay? An amendment process. What this means is if you have an opinion, put it through the process, okay? Which means you have to give your criticism, your justification, and what you'd like to modify in actual writing, right? Put your money where your mouth is. This is just to limit people grandstanding about, I think, I know. We want to really focus, the time that I'm going to be in there towards making sure that we all agree on this Constitution, that we all agree on the social architecture. That's a really important part, okay? But we have to ratify it democratically. So after we go through this full discourse, then it's going to be passed off into essentially the main network. I'm going to take it, I'm going to post it as, it's going to have an asset, a non-fungible token to represent that Constitution, and then we're going to vote, and people will vote on it, and they'll ratify it. And essentially, that's how we're going to ratify it on chain. So we'll all sign it with our trust keys. So that's going to be a really important process, okay? And I think that's going to clear up a lot of the confusion. There's a lot of people that don't fully understand everything that it's doing, and it's really easy. But I just want to remind you guys, okay? If you make things about yourself, you're ultimately going to harm yourself, okay? It's a we thing, not a me thing. We need to focus together, okay? The world is going crazy right now. Don't let that insanity come into our little oasis that we have created together. We need to create a safe place for new people to come in, okay? Look at yourself, Robert. Do you think new people coming in are going to like seeing all the stuff that you type? I don't. I don't even want to be there, okay? So work on that, okay? Because you're making things centralized when you consume the whole space. And yeah, you're saying that it's all centralized, but it's you, okay? You point the finger, there's 3 fingers pointing back. We need to make sure we understand that completely and that we take care of that completely, okay? And that we work together, okay? A lot of times we may think that we're helping things by saying things, but it doesn't always help. What's going to help is all of us finding ways to get along, settle our agreements, and come up with a really awesome protocol that's really going to drive things forward, okay? DAOs, just look at Dash. They're the very first DAO. What happened to them? Corporate takeover. Totally got taken over. Now it's, they don't even have any developers anymore because they're like, hey, we don't need it. It's price is already high enough. So, the DAO technology is still really limited. And when we finish these protocols, there was a lot of interest at Anarchapulco. I talked for, I think it was 10, 15 people, Phil. We gave a little demonstration on it, and it ended up really well. People were really interested, got a mini email list. There's organizations that already want to start using it, right? And if anybody's seen, there was a project called DAO Stack, which, the CEO of DAO Stack, which I thought was kind of ironic, was talking about it. And I haven't seen anything from that since. I think they were trying to make a bunch of tools for DAOs, but it never really went anywhere. But that we're ultimately going to have a DAO stack inside our API. So once we get all of these protocols finalized in the Constitution, then it's going to become hard coded. And so a lot of these things right now, like, Phil and me, we have to manually process certain things. Like, for one, like, there's a SIG chain that, I have to manage that represents the embassy, right? There's just no way around that until the code's completed. But, if we just dive in right now and we hard code all of this stuff and there's a bug or there's something we want to adjust, it's not easily remedied. And once you have financial resources tied in with that, then it becomes a bigger trouble, right? So we have somewhat of a manual process in the beta process right now, and that's what necessitates a little bit more judicial involvement, right? Which is kind of what myself and Phil have been doing. But ultimately, it's 2 of 3 branches are what can sign to ratify any proposals, okay? So it's designed that way so that one branch could be completely corrupt and the system can still resolve itself. So I'm explaining this in the Constitution of how, the administrative judicial branch, whatever it is, can be sidestepped through developers, right? If the ambassadors feel a big enough issue, they can go and raise an incident report with the developers. And then the developers can form their own local jury if they decide to take the case. Otherwise, developers can be like, no, man, cut off the drama, guys, whatever. Go deal with the jury yourself. So there's a lot of different processes that will help satiate a lot of you guys' concerns. Well, not a lot. There's only a few people. But I just want to make it clear. What I've seen has not been helping, okay? We need to make an awesome place for new people to come in. We need to make a wonderful space for people to be able to just be free to be themselves and learn and, explore this technology. I mean, a great deal of people I've talked to, I'll run into them and they'll be like, oh, yeah, I'm not really into crypto, but oh yeah, Nexus. Nexus is the only one I'll really use. Like there's a lot of people like that. We've attracted a lot of people that would not normally be in crypto that are in a Nexus, right? And we need to continue that trend. But we do that by creating a nice space, right? We want to create a wonderful place for people to be. So I just want to make that clear. Now, the final reason why I've kind of gone more onto Twitter and stuff is, as I said, I think, you guys need to build those skills to be able to manage without me, because Nexus will become stronger and more robust the less that I'm needed. Okay, so I felt like it was a time, and also I need to focus on code, and it's just too many discussions and too many people's energies yagging on me and people tagging me all the time. It takes away from that. So that's why I'm always going to be here. Just want to make sure you all know that. Okay, I'll be back to ratify the Constitution, and then I'm going to bounce and I'll be on Twitter from there. Development-wise, as I said, I'm finishing up the remote login system. That's the last feature build out. Client mode's being tested right now. Kendall's doing a build on iOS and Android. It should be just about there. I just have to add an assets trade. Like right now, the peer-to-peer marketplace supports tokens. Now I'm going to add like a non-fungible token asset trade, and then a couple little pieces for like volume measurements and things like that. Other than that, it's pretty much ready to pack and ship. It's just been little things here and there, like, hey, Christo wants the PIN number, or not having a PIN number on this, and I'm, developer discussions. Oh, well, the PIN numbers is security. Well, can we do this? Can we do that? Right? Just little things like that. But I think our beta is about to expire soon, so we're shooting to have, when this new beta finishes, to be when we get our next one out. And that should really be able to determine to you guys when to expect the release. If you want to play with it, you can use it now. Like, so release for 5.1 has already happened on the hybrid networks. It's been running the biological and ecosystems futures for almost a year now. Okay, a lot of these little things that we've been developing lately have been mainnet features, client mode, tying together a lot of these things. The core level private mode, hybrid mode, API functionality has been functional for quite some time. It's just been getting all the public stuff kind of tied together and everything like that. So, go ahead and use it if you find anything, if you want to have fun with it, play around with it, see how it works. It's a good time to start developing these feedback processes right now. If there's any feature requests. Also, use the issues tracker on GitHub. If you run across any bugs or you have any enhancements that you would like, drop an issue on the issue tracker. And if you want to see the progress, just track the issues, right? I had it down to like 2 issues, and then there was another wave of just like, so it's just like, it's kind of difficult. We don't have a really clear testing protocol right now. It's just kind of anyone that's testing is just like, writing whatever bugs that they want, and some of them aren't bugs, and so it's just don't take that like totally literally like, oh hey, there's new problems happening all the time. It's just like somebody will come in and send a wave of bugs that they didn't report because they didn't test, or so it's we need to clear that up so that I can give you a better like, hey, we're down to 3. Oh wait, now we're back to 7. you know but it's getting there. We're whittling it down. It's been a long haul. I mean, it really has. It's I mean, I pretty much redid pretty close to the entire code base, or like close to half of it. And in that process, developed a lot of new features as well. I mean, I gutted out so much code. I mean, thousands and thousands and thousands of lines. I mean, like probably 10 or 20,000 lines. But yet, it's more code than it was before, right? Because we've added that much more code as well. But it's really good code. What I mean is, it's like when you usually add more code, it doesn't always mean you're going to have a better program. It sometimes means it's going to be slower, or you're going to have more data, or all these different things. It's fast. It's really fast. I mean, even Kendall, when he fired up, he's like, "Holy crap, man, it's fast!" Like, if you guys notice, like opening up your transactions tab can take a while. That's part of what I've cleaned up, and then, now you guys know the life and the day in the life of a developer. Just to make that transaction page open up faster for you was like year worth of work, because a lot of the issues in the API was just like exponential time algorithms from the previous developer. There's also some new interest at the conference. Okay, so there were, I think, 2. Yeah, so I have 2 developers in the pipeline right now. One I'm starting kind of training. He's a really good guy, really enthusiastic about it. He saw my speech at the conference, really inspired. He has a lot of experience with C++. We'll see how he goes. We're having a call next week to kind of get him introduced. He's been checking out the code. He's been really interested in it. So, he's kind of coming on as my wingman as far as a new developer. We'll introduce him over time as he kind of gets more matured into it. We're just in the initial phases right now. We're having a call next week to go through and just do a run through of the code and start getting him some basic tasks. So, that's +1 to the dev team. And then a more longer, and he should be a long term, he's doing some volunteering to start. And then, we'll eventually pay him more as he gets more involved. And then the other more long term is kind of an embedded systems architect and engineer. He's brilliant. He's absolutely brilliant. But that one's a little bit longer a timeline to get him involved. He develops different, embedded systems. So he's perfect to help me, drive the operating system forward too. So, I kind of got 2 guys, one guy that's going to start helping more on the peripheral API stuff, and then another guy that's going to start helping on the LXOS low level stuff. So I can really be able to dive in to the actual TAO and get that, like, API layer and below, or below the API. I mean, a lot of this last update has really just been API code, right? Which, it was kind of what I had expected the prior developer to do when we hired him, because, like, part of it's my fault for I just made some of the basic API code just to test it for like our UPS use case and things like that, just to build basic use cases. But he kind of took that and ran with it, and then didn't really clean anything up, and just and then like made a lot of things way worse. And then, like, the reason I kind of had to go down this rabbit hole is because I think CoinKit had like an 800,000 SigChain transaction, and it just crashed their entire server and caused like some critical bugs to happen. And I was just like, okay, like this needs to be refactored. Like, trust me, guys, I would have wanted to release it a year ago if I could have. But it just was one thing after the next. And nope, this needs love too, and this still needs love, and this needs love. So I appreciate everyone's patience on it. And yeah, so maybe Phil, if you want to drop in and discuss a little bit about your experiences at the conference, what you saw. Phil, you helped with the workshop that we did on the social architectures and stuff. Why don't you drop a couple notes from what your experience has been?
Yeah, I spent a lot of time at the booth talking about the SIG chain mostly because there's so many people that have heard of Nexus, but they still don't understand what the SIG chain is. So I just tried to break it down as simply as possible. And once people really get it, then it's like a light turns on their head, and like, oh shit, like wow, that's really really useful. And anyone that wants a parallel system, really understands the significance of a digital ID, because we can't have a parallel system without some kind of identifier. So just I spend most of my time just explaining that, and I think I made a lot of good connections this year. I think a lot more than I did last year for sure. And I think the people there were in some ways a lot smarter in a way. I feel like last year was more, maybe because the crypto was a lot higher last year, and this year is more. Sorry, I got a phone call.
Yeah, it was an interesting year. It seemed like a lot newer people. Last year was kind of a lot more nichey, Bitcoin maxis and stuff like this. There was a lot of new people this year that really hadn't touched too much crypto.
Yeah,
That were just wanting to start to get involved. And yeah, and it's really cool to see. Like, I mean, even such a simple feature is the signature chain, right? Which is one of just like a big treasure trove full of features. Is just such a useful feature for crypto. Like, especially like when I was talking to like some people about like a use case for essentially some of their governmental systems. I'm just like, okay, well, you have your corporation commission, you have all of that done through a login portal, right? And they're like, yeah. I'm like, well, okay, well, how are you going to add blockchain functionality to that with the key management? And they're just like, oh, well, and then it's like, well, you're going to have to manage the keys because people aren't going to be able to maintain their keys, because if you lose your keys and then you lose your company, it's totally gone. And that's just such a huge hurdle for so many people. I've noticed in encryption as well, like if anybody's used Keybase, for instance, it's kind of like a pseudo encrypted Slack. You have to make a paper wallet backup, otherwise you lose access to your account. And if you just uninstall the app, I did it once. I was just like, screw this app, man. And I uninstalled it, and I was like, whoops, okay, there goes my account. Like, I can't get into it now because, they stored it in the data directory, So it's pretty interesting how it goes. But so there's been a lot of interest in doing the encryption with it too. I think was really important too, and the digital identity, and then being able to create this parallel system. Because as I was kind of talking to this use case, I was just like, well, all you have to do with your username, password, and PIN plug is you just drop it in, and it just runs parallel directly over that, and boom, you're done, right? You have no problems integrating it over an existing web application, and that's something that I've seen bring a lot of interest, and that's kind of why we've gone with this different angle of being, more of a framework to support the web rather than, a blockchain that you want to integrate. Like, the blockchain is a subset of the larger framework that we're developing, right? So,
and I talked to a few doctors that were interested in like a parallel electronic health record. I think that would be a huge use case. There's a ton of doctors and patients out there that no longer want to go to hospitals, and yet they need some kind of way to connect with their doctors. And it's about time that people had control of their own medical records, because the system is backwards right now. It's so hard to get your medical records. You have to request it from your doctor, your hospital. It's a huge pain, and it makes no sense. It should be the patient that has control, and then they give access to the doctor. That's how it should be. So that's going to be a huge use case. And I think
even talking with that doctor was really interesting too, getting some understanding of kind of the nuances and dynamics of hospitals too, and how much like the hospital system is just completely clunky with medical records. They can't transmit records between each other, but they don't really care. Like, there's just not much incentive for them. Remember, we were talking about getting medical records integrated in the hospital, and he's just like, they're not going to care. What's their incentive going to be, because they're already making this and that, And so like that makes it kind of a difficult issue too, with like, how do you solve it with all these large conglomerates? And that's, where the discussion, remember with him, it led towards finding more records for like more clinics and more single doctors, right? More individuals rather than this large conglomerate. It's kind of it goes and bodes well for kind of the purpose that we're shooting anyway too. It's really important to support the individual and the individual's right and control over their own records rather than a hospital's control over the records. I mean, because ideally, I would like to be able to get a little message on my phone saying, hey, so and so is requesting your medical records. Do you want to share them? And you click yes or no, instead of it being some sort of third party that you have to contact, and them share them on your behalf.
Yeah, definitely. And then there's people like Lieberland, and I met someone else starting. He called it Country 2.0, and just a lot of communities that just start trying to break off and create their own little ecosystem, and they're going to want like signature chains is perfect for them, and there's nothing else out there that compares.
Yeah. And it makes it so stateless and easy, and it reaches the design requirement too for having a decentralized identity system, because what good is your identity if you can lose it that easily? Like, okay, I uninstalled this app on my phone and now I've lost complete access to my entire life identity. It's scary. It's even worse than losing your actual paper ID card that you have. And all these systems that these people have built, whether it's Lieberland or medical record systems and everything, they all have a login portal. Every single one of them, it's login based. So having this remote login is going to be really powerful as well, because then you're going to be able to replace. Initially we're just saying you pass it to your local node and then you run the node there, but now you have your mobile wallet pop up and you don't even have to type in your password on the login portal anymore, right? So it creates this new improved effect where hey, I'm not giving my credentials to Google, but all I have to do is type in my username on this website, and then it says, okay, please click accept on your phone, and then boom, a notification pops up on your phone. You say, okay, I have to log in on this site. Click log in, and boom, now you've logged in. And you remove these security issues too, like phishing, if anybody's familiar with phishing, where you create a fake login page and you're able to essentially just get somebody to put in their credentials into the login page, and now you've got their account. That's the number one way people get hacked, right? That's what a lot of people try to do through your email scams and stuff like that, or Facebook. You get that a lot on Facebook. This totally it eliminates that, and it solves so many other issues at once. And that's what I found anyway for like a really good feature to focus on, is something that solves so many issues with one thing. And signature chains are one of those things, especially, then adding the crypto API in there and being able to store an encrypted version of your encryption key for your file system, so that all your files that you're storing in the file system that are encrypted now have the state managed through your signature chain. And so all you really need, is to log in, and boom, you have access to your entire file system now. And it's another really powerful feature. And I think, with that we have like the recovery and then your regular, permissions, as far as your encrypted keys, so that, if you forget your password, you're not out your files. And then that also opens a door for so many other people to develop encryption into their applications as kind of a default, because it's such a burdensome process right now. I mean, to develop any type of encryption application, it's really, really difficult to find talent that can work with it, because there's so many things that we don't know, right? You don't know what you don't know. And so, that's one thing that I'm really, really excited about, is like the peer-to-peer messaging API and, the crypto API. Those are my two really, really like excited features. Like, I'm really excited about that. And then developing a lower level database into a service too, so that you can develop web apps with that, and then even building an API inside that too, and improves the overall quality and, I guess, efficiency of your existing web applications. And I think that's one of the best things we can do for blockchain right now, is prove its value. So many people talk about the value. They talk about it. Like even, DeFi, which is going to be the future of finance, as they've all been saying, but like, what is DeFi? Well, I stake this shitcoin for another shitcoin so that I get paid a shitcoin, and then I can exchange this shitcoin for another one, but it costs me $3,000 to exchange it because the Ethereum transaction fees are so high, and then you really look at it and be like, what have you created? Nothing. It's nothing. It's just all speculative. It has no actual real world value. And that's why I've noticed a lot of people that, I run across, like even just random people, oh, hey, wait, yo, you created Nexus? Oh, shit. Oh, you're Colin? Fuck, man. Like, Nexus is the only cryptocurrency that I'm involved in, like, keep going what you're doing, man. It's awesome. There's so many people that would not be involved in crypto that are involved in Nexus. And I think we need to really keep that train rolling for everybody that's listening right now. Like, in how we promote, we need to make it relatable. And that's why, Phil bringing in kind of the farmers markets and supply chains and Project Phoenix has been really beneficial as well, too, because that's something everyone can fundamentally relate to. That's something that, Ernie and me were talking about, is it's just, people need food. And we're looking at the world right now and what's happening. Chickens are dying. Angelina Jolie's eating bugs, and showing everybody how great eating bugs is, and trying to be economical and all this stuff. And we're starting to see food in our stores starting to dry up, and people are starting to think, oh man, I need to start a garden, but wait, no, I don't have enough space for a garden, or I don't know how to do a garden, or whatever. And so taking kind of the idea of farmers markets to the next level. I mean, like, the grocery stores are really just kind of a new phenomenon, and I think the more we can provide technology that's going to help people maintain the same quality of life, I think is what's going to really be the name that wins. In crypto right now, and correct me if I'm wrong, if anyone wants to speak up, but I really haven't seen a whole lot of practically usable applications built on crypto yet. Most of it's just DeFi and speculation and NFTs, but it doesn't really do anything. Like, how can this? I just bought food because of this crypto. Bitcoin used to fulfill that purpose. You used to be able to use Bitcoin for transactions, and I remember that was a huge piece. That was a huge part of it. But now, just I mean, it's not a digital cash. It's just Bitcoin gold now, right? Is what they call it, digital gold. This is, transaction fees are too high, and nobody's ever going to use this and that. So all of these deficiencies in the other industries, I think, have left a big adoption gap wide open for us to fill. And making it easy enough for grandma to use it. And that's where our tech really is focused, on making it easy enough for grandma to use it. That's one thing I've spent the last few years doing in the API, is making even the API like easy enough for grandma to use it, where if you know how to type in a web link, you can create an NFT just in your web browser, something that simple. Because making that available for people, I think, is one of the best things that we can do. I've loved seeing so many people having their new bubble apps coming to life. It's been really cool to see.
And some people think we're trying to appeal to fringe populations, but I don't think that's true at all. Like, even Lieberland, I didn't take him seriously last year, but I was talking to Mick this year, and he said they have like 800,000 applicants. And, for that tiny little piece of land, it's not because they want to live there. They just want to have the advantages of a citizenship.
Yeah.
Like, you could, open a bank account there or something and not be, subject to U.S. regulations. Just things like that. And, yeah, I think he said they're trying to decide between Nexus and Dero.
Well, they were using something else. They've been using something else that's been having like
They're using Polygon. Yeah, they're having problems with Polygon.
Yeah, and I'm just helping them to start. Like, I told them just basically, hey man, I like what you're doing. I understand what I understand from a lot of direct experience. I'm happy to help in whatever capacity. That doesn't necessitate, my help is not dependent on you using Nexus or not, but there are certain practical applications that would make it really beneficial. So I'm planning on going out and doing a brainstorming with the Lieberland guys, probably if I can get out sometime later this year, or next year, to go do a sit down in person, really discuss. But we're getting on a call in the near future to kind of just help them brainstorm, understand what it is that they're doing, and help them break the requirements up. But I mean, that right there, it's a new country, right? I mean, it's a new country setting a new standard for other countries. And you got other countries like El Salvador starting to want to adopt Bitcoin and stuff like that. So, I mean, you build good tech and people start to recognize that technology in other places, like, a country, that could spread like wildfire as well. And that's something that practically applies. Now I can have my own sovereign control over my title, and I don't need to use a title clearinghouse. And I, essentially don't need to use a motor vehicle division, which means that you don't have to charge fees. You don't have to have all that administration. You don't have to have all that waste. These simple things could be implemented. I mean, even in Arizona, they're starting to really push a lot of blockchain legislation and support for it here, So there's going to be a lot of openings, and that's what we're really focusing on with our use cases. It's a timing thing. Sometimes you just got to wait for the right time and have the right things developed in place for that right time. And that's really kind of where we're at right now. We don't really want to settle for things that are less, that aren't going to really make an impact in the world. So we've really put our focus towards that. So yeah, so recap on everything. Track the issues, guys. Okay, the issues tracker is going pretty well. I mean, it's going up and it's going down. You'll be able to monitor direct progress there. Kendall and I have been working on the builds today. The client mode stuff has been pretty smooth for me. It's just been like little idiosyncrasies. I didn't really get a whole lot done last week. I didn't really code any last week. And so he had a little bit more time, but now we've got some time we're dedicating today to really get that. So, hopefully today's Thursday, we should be able to get a new build out to you guys. Ideally, I would like to have it out today or tomorrow. If everything works correctly, as it should, Kendall usually has about a 1-day turnaround from, his internal testing to getting out that, which would be, including the 5.1 core. And then the 5.1 client mode also works by default on the desktop, so you'll be able to run your desktop wallet in client mode, which my desktop syncs in about 12 seconds. And it requires a really small amount of disk space. And then, that also, I think like a gigabyte of disk space. That also makes it really, I guess, usable for a lot of people that aren't staking. It's a really simple, quick setup, all of those good things. And we can even make a little bootstrap for the client mode as well. So you can just download the bootstrap right then and there and done. I think it's like as long as it would take to download about a gigabyte. But that's, a large reduction. I'm wrapping up the remote login system. Like I said, I developed the architecture of it. I've done some of the basic implementations of it. It's related to the lookup protocol that I had that working. I have a couple little things, mostly just the invoices API right now. Needs a little bit of work, which hasn't really been thoroughly tested because I just haven't had a nice way to put in all of the JSON data. But Arun has been doing a really good job reporting bugs, finding bugs. I think there's one more bug with the names and just like little things like, okay, hey, he wants more details on like name addresses and stuff like the from address. So we've been populating that with the different register types and things like that. So just little things like that. And then this last feature build out, and then, Kendall getting that. I think the wallet guys say that the wallet, desktop wallet, is pretty much ready to go. I'll check in with Christo. Me and him have been kind of in pretty good contact. I'm still in Telegram too, so if anybody wants to check in with me, or you're worried about anything, or you want to, I would recommend if there's anybody saying anything that like about what I think or what I'm doing for or whatever, just reach out, get to the horse's mouth. Try not to follow hearsay. If you have any questions or if you have anything that you want to challenge. I'm in the Nexus developers Telegram too. It's a little quieter in there. It's nice. There's a Constitution channel in there as well, so you can come in and start asking questions if you have any ideas. I'm going to get the Constitution posted. Ideally, depending on how code and everything, I think I should be able to get some stuff done this weekend. I'm going to probably work through this whole weekend to just wrap all this stuff up, but we're going to go through a full ratification process, so I'll jump back into the community Telegram to start the ratification of the Constitution, which it's going to be a very formal process, okay, and partially due to just like the malarkey I've seen the last couple months. It needs to be a very formal process, no opinions. If you see something, section 2, subsection A, change this verbiage from this to this, here's why, this is the design requirement, this is why you need to do this, blah, 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 and then, vote, poll, so on and so forth, to get consensus, or at least rough consensus, on the initial presentation of it, so that we can all understand it clearly, we can all move forward, and then we'll probably at that point go through, a bit of a DAO reboot where we're going to go through and, okay, what arms are doing what and what ones, do you guys feel good? Like, I don't know what's up with communications. Do you have any info on communications, Phil? Did they dissolve voluntarily? Are you familiar with what happened there? I guess we don't have to go
no, the guy is the new chair, and he messaged Ariel today, I think. And
okay, good. Ariel's awesome. Ariel's awesome. She's great. Yeah, so she writes for all the Anarchapulco. That would be awesome to see her getting involved in that. Okay, so communications is rebooted, but we'll want to go through. Part of this includes, there is, if you read Article 1 of the Constitution, it does state that there's a quarterly requirement for quarterly reports. I think we want to start getting more consistent with that. Developing, is it going to be on Zoom or is it going to be whatever? And we need to be a little bit more up and up on that. We've kind of been letting things slack a little bit. So once this Constitution gets ratified, we're going to be moving full steam ahead, right? So that means if you want to be moving full steam ahead, stay on the boat. If you don't want to be moving full steam ahead, jump off the boat, okay? We got to really, we're driving up to the release of 5.1. It's almost done. It's multiple years worth of work, but it's also, multiple years of foundational work too. So, just watch the code. You guys are going to see, especially as there's no drama, right, from you guys. Like, I will get so much more done. Okay. I love you guys, and I'm still working on not letting other people's issues affect me so much. But like, I work the best when everybody's just loving each other. Okay. So just, if you guys want 5.1 done faster, you guys want the code done faster, just try to love each other a little bit more. Okay. Try to just be kinder to each other. Okay. We don't have to always agree. That's totally cool. Agreeing all the time is it's boring. It's not right. We need to have, we need to have the ability to express our differences in a way where we can understand the paradox is this and that, not this or that, right? It's really important for us because we all have different insights. And, part of what gives us, this capability and this collective intelligence is when we're able to combine those in the ands, right? So just try to hear this message if you guys care to, if you want code done faster, like these things, like the last 2 months has slowed me down. I'm not going to lie. Like, all that stuff and the turmoil and whatever, it slows me down. So if you guys want things to be faster, just keep formal processes, okay? If you have issues with each other internally, file incident reports. I'm going to outline it all in the Constitution. I think, I'm personally guilty of having said things in public, as a means to keep people accountable. Obviously, I've learned through my experience, that's not the appropriate way. I think, as a team, we all need to make sure that we are sticking together, we're holding together, we're working together, we're focusing together, and we're not making public spats about things. If there's issues, there's a whole process and protocol for handling those issues and resolving them internally without really the need for that drama to be spreading outside of the space that it's being resolved in, right? That's one of the reasons why the arms all are kind of sovereign, is so that each arm can manage their own self their own way, right? And if there's disputes, then that can be handled, through the jury and through that arm and through those people, and then it never has to become a big public issue. I think, our public presentation needs to have some work as far as, being an inviting place. Just look at the community and ask yourself, if I were a new person, would I be turned off by this, or would I be really excited about it? And then think about, what are the things that would make me really excited being in this community? What are the things that would make me really want to be there? And then start doing that, right? We all have a part. We all have a piece to play. And the more of us that take that into our hands, the stronger it's going to be, and the more it's going to grow, and the faster the development's going to get, and the more people are going to get involved, right? So we need to, make it a wonderful place to work together and to be together. And like I said, if you guys want the code to get done faster, I'm serious. Like, just try to love each other a little bit more and get along a little bit better. Because, like, I kind of feel that. I can feel when there's tension and dissonance and stuff, and it makes it harder for me to focus. My creative energy, I get, like, when I'm on, I can pump out code. I mean, like, on average, 1,000 lines a day. Like, that's just, like, that's a slow day, okay? Like, a fast day is, like, 5,000 lines, okay? Like, I can pump the freak out of code. But if there's constantly all these different emotional things, and oh, great, now I have to finish this Constitution, I have to this, and I juggle that, and I have to this, and oh, now I have to respond to this person, and oh, now this person's upset, and I have to do this, and I have to explain this to this person. There goes a whole day, and then another day, and then another day. So just try to be mindful of that, okay? Like, I'm still going to be here for you guys if you need it, but just be mindful that the more you guys ask of me as far as those things are concerned, and the more you guys need from me that's not related to code, then the slower the code will get, right? And the more tension and drama we have with each other, like, the slower it's going to be, because then it's going to have to, it causes a lot more stress. And when it's stressed, then, like, things don't get done as well, and they don't get done as effectively. So just remember that, right? We're all on the same team, guys, okay? We're all here together. We're all doing this together. Like, we may not all agree, and we all don't have to love each other either, but let's just try to be a little kinder to one another. Let's try to work together a little bit more. Okay, and that's really, I mean, that's a powerful thing when we can really get that and aim that. So, if there's parts of the DAO architecture that you don't like, get prepared for the Constitution, okay, and then I'll give the template for how we're going to do the review and the amendment process, and just be ready to give your feedback in a formalized process so that we can have consistent progress forward instead of just a bunch of people giving their opinions, right? And think of the Telegram as kind of like a public square, right? Like, you're not going to go run out in the public square with a megaphone to get your narrative across, right? We need to be respectful of each other, and we need to recognize that that's a public space too, and that if if there's just a few people that are talking all the time, we need to not. It's gonna make the good people afraid to speak up, right? You hear the term silent majority, and a lot of times I've found that there's a lot more people than you would think. But if it's the same few people always just trampling over and thinking they know everything, then it's just going to cause other good people to be like, yo, I'm not gonna say anything because this one guy might just start like blowing out at me like I see him do or whatever. Or this guy seems like he really thinks he knows, and that type of hard attitude tends to push people away. So let's, instead of thinking about like how can we lift ourselves up, let's think about how we can benefit the community as a whole, and how do we make the community space a really wonderful space that's a great place that people will want to be in. Okay. And like, we need to be attracting people like that, right? And not pushing people away and not pushing each other away. Okay. We all have valid perspectives. Everybody's perspective is valid, but if you send your perspective a lot more, it's not going to make it any more valid. Okay. So, let's just try to make sure we give other people space and encourage other people to talk and help people feel safe. Because I've noticed, a lot of people, they don't always speak up. Right? And we want to get more people talking. We want to get more people involved in the conversations. We want to get more people involved in consensus and more people involved in the DAO, right? So let's do our part together to do that, okay? And so, yeah, monitor the issues tracking. I will be posting videos. I'll probably do like Twitter live stuff too. When I get cool stuff in the lab, I'll post you little videos like the next step to the propulsion system. I'll show you a device that's, levitating after using electricity, and then other little things like the hydrogen battery, stuff like that, the comms, communication. I'll keep you in the loop on the new developer, how he's going. As I said, he's in early training testing phases, so we'll see how he turns out. He seemed very enthusiastic. I really liked him, so we'll see how that pans out. And then Constitution, look out for that to once it gets completed, to go through the full ratification process, ratify it with the trust keys, and then once we ratify it too, be also prepared that, like, if speak now or forever hold your peace, right? Let's not have any drama about it, after that point, right? We'll have a consistent amendment process that we can go through from then forward, because it'll be a pretty close to hard-coded protocol. It'll be like one step from actually making it a code. So, if there's things that we find that are deficient that need to be modified in the Constitution, we can go through an amendment process that will include trust keys and signing and voting and all of that stuff. So, I think that's pretty much a wrap for me. Did you have anything that you wanted to add before we wrap, Phil? Anything you wanted to say? Final words?
No.
No? Okay, cool. And yeah, I'd like to, thank Phil too for helping fill some of that space. Phil is filling. I mean, ultimately, I would love to be able to lead the community, but we all know, I got to pull a Satoshi at some point, and I'm not going to disappear. But in order for Nexus to really truly be decentralized, me as a creator, I have to continually take my steps back to become just a node in the system. So I want to just thank Phil for helping kind of be a person that can help driving that forward. I know over time you guys will really come to appreciate, the person he is that I've come to appreciate. I'm grateful for all of you guys, and I'm grateful for Phil, and grateful for the team, and yeah, I look forward to continuing to drive things forward. So
I just want to say one thing.
Yeah, go for it.
Because everything is it's just a big learning experience for me. I don't take anything personal. I know people blame me for this, but I don't get upset. It's just I try not to most of the time. But it's just, this is an experiment. It doesn't mean I'm not taking decentralization seriously. I just know that it's a learning process, and it's not going to happen overnight. We're centralized, and then we're slowly making that transition to being decentralized. And it's going to be the same for every community out there. I don't think any community is going to start out decentralized. It's always going to be someone in charge, usually someone who has invested the most time or money, and then hopefully that person will be willing to, give up his power, but he or she is going to have to trust the process and trust the people. So I think we'll be able to teach others to be able to go through this process, since we've already done it first. So
exactly, there's no model for how to build a decentralized autonomous organization. There's none, right? Where like we've literally designed this entire social architecture from scratch and it's never been done before. So there's things that are going to not work as well as we want them to, and that's why a very formal feedback process is important. I'm saying formal for a reason, is like, we can't just be spouting opinions in a Telegram channel, because that's going to get lost and buried in messages, and then everyone else is going to start sharing their opinions. We need to have, I'll probably set up an online forum for the amendment process for as we change it and modify it. And as Phil said, this is an experimental technology. We're debugging it right now. We're figuring out what works and what doesn't so that we can make it work. Okay. So just, if there's things that don't work entirely as well as we want, just keep those in mind so that we can make sure we give that input when we get into the discussions and ratify the Constitution. Right? That's really important. And, as Phil said too, there things, think of it as like a child, right? A child only knows its mother for its first, this first minute that is born, and then it starts being its father and so on and so forth. But like as a child grows up, it starts getting more people that influence it as it grows, right? And that's kind of how things naturally, they grow out from like, a small thing, and they become decentralized more and more and more and more and more. And that's what we're doing right now too. I mean, 7 years ago, it was really just me, and now look at all the people that are involved in it. It's growing and it's becoming more vibrant, right? And it's going to continue to do that. So we need to just continually develop these protocols and encourage that growth towards that level, right? And, the fact that, I've willing to, turn over the community to Phil, in that role, and kind of take my seat back and go to the code, that's a testament to the decentralization, right? That's a testament to our decentralization. And the market didn't totally just drop off a cliff. That's good, right? I should not be able to influence the market price. Like, you guys should be the ones that choose what it is, right? Not based on what I say, but what you see, what you do, what you can contribute to it. That's what's going to make a really, really powerful system, right? So, just know that that's my role, guys. I'm going to continue building it, but, as a creator, like, I'm always going to kind of be seen as a central point of failure and a central weak point. So I have to continue to remove myself in series of steps, and really, ultimately, I'd like to just be able to focus on the code. That's where my happy place is. So, thank you, everybody, for kind of taking the torch and helping in developing that and helping to help grow the decentralization in the system. I think that's pretty much it for me. Anybody else I only got a little bit of battery. I don't know if I can allow people. Let's see. Did you want to say something, Chris? Yeah. And Crypto Sphinx. If you guys want to say, you guys are doing a lot of emojis. You guys want to say anything? I just invited you guys to speak if you want to say some last lines before we close. You don't have to if you don't, but it's there if you want it. Okay. Well, thank you, everybody, and I look forward to the next AMA. I think I'm probably going to do monthly AMAs from here, unless you guys want to keep bi-weekly until it, but I guess I'll plan, what is it? It would be early March.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Oh, thank you. Hey,
ciao.
What's up, man? Yeah, ciao. Thanks, man. Let's see. I think let's just do every 2 weeks for now, until we get the 5.1 release, and then we'll maybe go back to monthly. But I think you guys probably want some more consistent updates from here. So, yeah, we'll see you guys in a couple weeks, and we'll do it again on Spaces. So, all right. Ciao, everybody. Thank you.